Hello, lovely people of the world. How are you? Welcome to your weekly energy discussion for the week of August 23rd through, I'd imagine, the 30th. I haven't looked at the calendar, but thereabouts, give or take a day or two, depending on when you're seeing this. I'm recording this on Saturday, the 21st, so we're just about 15 hours shy of the second full moon in Aquarius at 29.5 degrees Leo. Um, Sorry, I was really overwhelmed by that. Just that prospect, that concept. We have so much going on right now that is in the ether, that is perhaps, there's a quietening energy this weekend in particular that you may be feeling, a calm after perhaps some tumult. And a lot of this has to do with air elements being in trine, and also earth elements being in trine. Uranus playing a big part in that earth trine as Uranus turns retrograde, which happened yesterday or the day before. And, it's stationing retrograde right now, and it takes a while for it to actually um, immeasurably retrograde. But that is an important thing to touch on. So I'm going to start with that and then move into the full moon energy, and then the Virgo season energy that is accompanied by this full moon, the completion of Leo season. So very pivotal, very different tone on the horizon. We may be picking up on intuitively, but not quite seeing in tangible form yet. Uranus in Taurus retrograde. Well, Taurus is, of course, an earth sign, and it's very much about our rapport with Mother Earth, with our environment, with what grounds us. And Uranus is electricity, and, imagine that electricity striking the ground and through a conduit. And that Uranian energy has been very external. We've been seeing these monumental, unexpected shifts, whether that be in a geopolitical sense, a societal sense, which of course reflects the collective values, whether or not we actually feel aligned with the collective values that are perhaps no longer organic, but instead imposed. And of course, Saturn in Aquarius has been all about how we negotiate that dissociation, the parts that don't match up, and they're becoming more and more and more apparent. But of course, when Uranus goes retrograde, it becomes less about external sudden shifts and electricity, and more about how that happens from within. I would love to say that it's a respite from the twists and turns, but no. It makes sense, though, if you look at it in terms of the timing, because as we've come out of our Leonine season energy, where we've completed, hopefully, in some shape or form, and we will have, whether you're conscious of it or not, you've gone into a new sense of self, a new sense of self-worth. Now, you could be destroyed by Leo season if things are so out of alignment. And, I can be perfectly honest with you on that level, because for me, while I'm always making massive strides forward in terms of my understanding of myself in this so-called reality construct, and how I intuitively feel I'm learning about the cosmos and the universe and the great beyond of this 3D existence. Um, the rest of me in my physical life has felt like I've been being crushed in a vice, with more and more restriction that isn't self-imposed, that isn't in alignment with my values. And so when that happens, what do as human beings? We seek out escapism. We find patterns that allow us to temper the frustration, the noise, the inner child crying out. And of course, as we evolve out of codependency and all of that sort of less evolved behavioral structure, we inevitably find ourselves faced with ourself, different facets of ourself, inner child, self-parent, right? And when we feel out of alignment, we tend to only relate to the inner child and that inner child's needs that are not being met. We lose track of how we can parent ourselves through those difficult dynamics. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly aligned on your journey. But it is a process, and it's one that all of these astrological aspects are divinely in service to that process. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that, just to sort of allow ourselves the space to take a deep breath and step back from the chaos, the attacks, the egoic restrictions, that are all, it's so hard to own those things because, the world can be a very unfair place and people can be extremely mindless, and the vast majority of people are not thinking about your well-being or my well-being, and even that's obviously even more obvious in our own interpersonal dynamics. For me, that restriction comes in the form of knowing that I have no desire or need to seek out validation from others, but at the same time not having filled that space with enough light and love to sustain myself without falling into the sense of lack. And that has been very much at the forefront of my mind this week because I have really felt infringed upon, disrespected. I felt the imposition of other people's agendas more than I would normally, because having come out of this leonine transformation of this season, I am acutely aware of, much more so than I was a month ago, of what is not serving me in my life. And how to address that. Do I risk spiritual bypassing by almost taking on martyrish qualities of being like, well, this is all in divine alignment and this is meant to be, and so, the infringements upon my personal space and my sovereignty are there to temper the process and move me forward. There's a part of me that can see truth and purpose in that, but there's another part of me that knows instinctively that I'm here to experience joy and love and kindness and compassion. And that means that as much as I want to be able to give that to others, I have to expect that from them towards me. And the only way to do that is to embody my expectation myself, to set the tone, to be the example. I'm speaking in I statements right now because it's that's my right. I can't speak for you, but my assumption is if you watch me, you find truth and relatability in the I statements that I make. So please don't misconstrue it as being purely a self-focused diatribe. It's not. It's a collective speaking that is coming through. So now we have to prepare for that. And how do we prepare for it? Well, again, astrology is magical in the sense that everything is purposeful in its progression, and Virgo is, of course, the natural progression from Leo in terms of the egoic challenge being assimilated and then put to task, because Virgo is all about discipline, it is all about accomplishment, how to accomplish, how to reach where we want to be, how to be in alignment with our drive. You know, so many people often will focus on Virgo as an egoic perfection. And what's problematic about that is that perfectionism obviously implies an end goal, when in fact it is perpetual motion. It's your perfectionism. It's what you set your heart, mind, and soul to accomplishing. So taking out the ego from that equation and understanding it more from the point of view of self-realization, that's when Virgo starts to make more sense, right? Because while Virgo can be a very detail-oriented, almost obsessive energy in its less emancipated frequency, if there's heart behind that drive, then there is never a sense of it being an infringement or a restriction, right? So, anyway, I hope that made some sense to discuss the transitional period into Virgo. I probably could use that a lot more myself because, as I said last week, my solar return is coming up, and it's well, literally at the same time as the full moon in Aquarius. And at the very, very tail end degree of Leo, because I'm 29 degree 20 and 0.53 Leo. I have a tickle in my throat because I am repressing frustration right now. A good time to start screaming into pillows if you're feeling the same way as me, because you kind of have to release it somehow, and obviously we can't release it against other people, even though that's been a consistent source of irritation for me this particular week. You may have noticed there was a tiny edit in there. I did have to actually edit out a part of the video because I have new neighbors moving in. It's been a blissful couple of months without having an upstairs neighbor, but of course, they're very bouncy, very loud, and like most people, but particularly younger people nowadays, they have no concept of how their actions affect anybody else. Goodness gracious. It's a very, very difficult. It's a difficult time to be alive. Let's be honest. If we are stuck in this energy. And as I said, I am so out of balance right now because I have I have obligations in my life that aren't giving me enough time and space to honor my own process. And so I'm struggling with that right now a lot. So bear with me as I try to stay in a grounded place. The full moon in Aquarius. Well, it's a completion energy, obviously. To have had a full moon in Aquarius at the beginning degrees of Leo, and then to have another in the same sign at the very last degree, gives us a very strong sense of the process that we've been under. So that's kind of your homework right now, is to take pause and sort of see how your perspective and your life have evolved since the beginning of Leo season. So we're talking like 22nd and 23rd of July. Time is so difficult to measure these days that, in all frankness, I can't even remember what was happening around that time. I do know that what happened to me on the surface, if I'm looking at my life, is that I got swallowed up entirely by other people's priorities. So, what happens when you lose sight of you lose sight of your own priorities and focus on other people's needs for a paycheck, for whatever your motivation is? You fall into poverty consciousness because frustration, imbalance, anger, resentment, feeling invisible, not feeling acknowledged, not feeling validated, all of those things point to injustice, but the injustice is within because it means that we're not giving ourselves what we need. So I am in the process of reconsidering a lot of things and actually having to pull back in order to take time and space for myself, whether that be professionally or socially. But that may not be a collective issue. That may be deeply personal to me and my chart right now. But if you find yourself in that, know that you're not alone. The full moon in Aquarius is here to allow us to release those contracts. And the best way to release contracts of a spiritual nature when they are a hindrance to our spiritual evolution is to do a full moon ritual and write those things down that you wish to release and burn them, tear them up and burn them. That's what I'm going to be doing. But that only works when you have something to put in their place, and that can just be a sentiment, an openness of your heart. That's what I'm going to be offering when I do that ritual. And of course, if you happen to see this after the full moon, that's fine, because the full moon energy is really, a good 3 to 5 days before and after the full moon. So you've still got time. Take the time to do it, though. Honestly, rituals really do help. And I'm talking to myself right now when I say that, because I am terrible at falling into escapism rather than doing the work. Just because, again, when you feel like somebody else takes up all of your energy and your attention, and you don't feel rewarded for it, and you feel empty and alone and isolated and alienated and abandoned and rejected, and I mean, obviously, you don't really, even if those are triggers coming up, of, making you feel like things that you felt in your childhood, or in a past life, ancestral trauma or trauma from this formative experience. You're not actually feeling rejected any longer or any of those things. You actually love yourself so much that you know that that is so out of alignment that you are not going to allow that to continue, but you panic in a very Nine of Swords way, because you don't know how to change the circumstances fast enough for it to register in a way that feels safe and comfortable. The change is not safe or comfortable, right? So we have to embrace that. Let's set our intentions and let's move into this week's reading. Okay, so our Spirit Animal Oracle card of the week, I don't think we've ever had this, so that's kind of refreshing. And it is also 18, which adds up to a 9. Dear Spirit, bring a gentle touch. And goodness knows I need to bring a gentle touch to my life. So I'm going to take a deep breath before I read this because I do need to ground myself. In fact, bear with me one moment. I'm missing something important. I need to burn a candle. You can't see it. It's here. But it's clearing the air for us. So, dear Spirit, what do you have to tell us? The time has come to be gentle and diplomatic when dealing with others. You might have found yourself in a situation where negotiations are necessary in order to reach your goal. Be mindful of the words you choose, but do not worry. Dear Spirit reminds you that you have the ability to be sure-footed and confident while showing humility and respect for others. You will find that your capacity for calm and grounded communication is heightened at this time. Follow the way of Dear Spirit and you will do well, gaining the respect of others and finding common ground that is pleasing to you. Remember that understanding others and their needs will be more powerful at this time than putting your own first. If you do that, you will be rewarded tenfold. And the protection message is the following. And this is the one that I'm really paying attention to because I know I need it, because I don't have the capacity right now, or I have not found that capacity recently to have that type of patience. I do when I'm communicating with people because I have to, but I literally am fuming and twisting myself in knots as soon as I am alone. In fact, 2 nights this week I came home from my work and lay on the floor and cried. Again, this is a recurring theme for me recently, and part of it is grief of letting go of many falsehoods and many illusions. And I'm not sure if that unraveling ever ends. But to feel that much despair in any given moment is obviously a clear indication that something is wrong, and that we sometimes have to give ourselves the permission to change radically. And if it isn't something in ourselves that needs to change radically, then it's something in our environment that needs to change radically, which can be daunting to contemplate. Dear Spirit is bringing you a gentle warning that now is not the time to engage in an argument, no matter how volatile others are being. Do not match their intensity with your own. If you are dealing with an overly assertive person, step back and disengage, lest you agree to something out of alignment with your intentions. Don't let anyone bully you into anything you're not comfortable with. You have solid footing if you stand your ground with grace. Those who disagree will begin to find their own gentleness and willingness to compromise. We lead by example, right? Our energy becomes the energy of the environment around us if we are pursuant and if we are persistent and we listen but hold the space that we need for our own thoughts. Dear Spirit also brings the message that it might be easy to offend someone today or take offense because someone lacks diplomacy. Well, that's been the story of my life for the last 2 weeks. Let all of that pass. You are not meant to take this world personally. While it's a beautiful gift to be sensitive, today you need a tougher hide so that any compromises you make allow you to maintain your integrity. So it's about self-preservation, and that's going to be a focus in the week ahead, is setting the boundaries. Again, boundaries, in such a way as to sustain spiritual balance, grounding, and growth. You know, it's interesting because last week I think we had the sunflower and we had purification as our sacred destiny oracle card, and this week we got purity. So when you're faced with emotional dissonance, it really is the opportunity to really observe within ourselves that purity, right? Because the essence of what's being triggered in us is our innocence, our desire not to be torn by somebody else's words or actions, the desire to be loved and to love. That is purity. No matter what has happened in the past, everything can be fresh and new again. The purity of your soul is shining through everything that you encounter. You are entering into a period of grace. Simply open your heart and know that the best is yet to be. The past does not need to equal the future. Your future can be and will be shimmering, sparkling, and bright. Old limiting patterns are dropping away. Recurring challenges are releasing. This is a time of redemption, forgiveness, and holy healing. Again, when you're feeling chaos and out of alignment, it's hard to imagine that you actually carry those things, but you do, in fact, carry them. That's the reason why you feel chaos and imbalance. And you have to remind yourself of that. The paradox is an illusion because it's actually way simpler than you think it is, right? Our Sufi Wisdom Oracle card of the week. Fine wine. Interesting. I will hold up the card for you just so that, because obviously these are abstract. Longing is the portal to wholeness. O heart, learn from the unopened bud. Stop complaining about enclosure. Don't you know that morning breeze unties all that is closed? The cure for the hardened heart is the temptation of love. Raise your head. The remedy is here, and so is the one that heals. Something is capturing your heart and pulling you close. Is it the presence of the beloved or the feeling of missing love? Sufi sages have written for ages about the transformative potential of longing. They consider longing for love as the medicine for every heart. The pain of the heart is the thread that leads you to heal the sickness of your soul. Hafiz is calling you to follow him into a new way of being in this world. He invites you to say yes to the incredible unfolding and feeling of blossoming. Remember, dear one, that the longing for love is an absolutely necessary part of life. The fire of love increases in the state of longing, while the excitement decreases when we relentlessly remain in the arms of the beloved. Like everything that is created, love has a dual nature, positive and negative, masculine and feminine. The masculine side of love is I love you. Love's feminine quality is I am waiting for you. I am longing for you. It is the feminine side of love, the longing for the lover, the cup waiting to be filled that leads the lover to the beloved. Sufi wisdom is inviting you not to feel badly. Your longing will soon enrich your life by giving you goals to achieve. You are experiencing a primal pain, the pain of separation. Embrace your suffering and allow it to lead you deeply within yourself. Be assured that it will take you deeper and away from the prison of your limited self to the freedom and wholeness of your divine nature. Propel me into the divine sweetness of love of the beloved. Pour the divine wine into me. Fill me and then drink from my lips. Let me glimpse a sweet, wonderful moment of the paradise of love. And I know that most of you are probably triggered because you're thinking love, like all of that sounded like longing, like longing and love, that we romanticize these concepts. They are intoxications, but that's not what we're talking about here. Yes, romantic love is spellbinding, but so is desire for our betterment, our improvement, learning, evolving, moving into new situations, when we make, when we commit to wanting a change in our lives and we commit to manifesting it, there's a lag. And there is longing. Lag has a very negative connotation, right? Immediately you're kind of thinking to yourself, like, oh, it's like a. Well, that's what the discomfort is. My frustrations when I'm feeling irritated or um, disembodied or belittled, um, or even shackled to somebody else's expectation. It's because I have a longing for something else, and that's not in alignment with my longing, so it's just bringing more emphasis to my longing, more attention to it, which in turn is what keeps us teachable and driven. Those are the page energies of the tarot, it's the youthful spirit that moves us towards spiritual, intellectual, emotional, material gain, That's the very essence of our existence here on Earth. Again, so much of the confusion comes from the duality of living in two states of mind, two dimensionalities, because states of mind are dimensionalities essentially. Heavy. Which is why our underlying energy of the week is the Knight of Wands in reverse. Now, what is the Knight of Wands in reverse? No card could represent being stuck more than the Knight of Wands in reverse. I wish I could tell you why. You'll know that yourself. I certainly can tell you why those things exist in my life. But let's just focus right now on the Knight of Wands. The Knight of Wands upright is an ambitious, driven, passionate, flirtatious, savvy, cunning force of nature, of inspiration. So, in the reverse, this is a person who feels stuck in all of those domains. This is how we feel. And I mean, obviously, on the macro level, it's quite easy to understand why we would feel that way with the endless complications of the geopolitical landscape, the technocratic agenda threatening our very essence as human beings, and all the other endless confusion and chaos and lack of ability to find the simplicity of truth in anything any longer. These things, then, of course, as above, so below, the same goes with the macro and the micro, and the inner and outer, like everything reflects everything. So it stands to reason that that's how we feel right now. You would be saintly if you weren't sensitive to the very complex dynamics on display. But there's a journey that we have to go on in order to move through that and move away from it. And the reassuring part of all this is that this week we actually have that opportunity to rise above and beyond. Our past energies are represented, this is basically where that Knight of Wands in reverse has led us, and we have these two cards that came out together. The Devil and the Page of Swords in reverse. So the Devil is where we get stuck in our ego. It's when we get stuck in the sense of lack, that we can only really I want to say satisfy. It's not really satisfy. It's like, we feel that we can only really temper it through our indulgence, our addictions, through codependency, through putting value on things outside of ourselves. By valuing the things outside of ourselves, the opinions, the experiences, etc., over the value of what we hold within. And what does that do? It cuts us off from the primary source and drive of life, which is the eternal student. This represents not being open to learning because we are holding on tightly to something that is out of our control. I mean, it all makes sense if you really look deep down inside at how quickly this can devolve into a feeling of chaos and being overwhelmed and not being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and losing ourselves in that process. There have been multiple moments for me in the last week in particular, but 2 weeks to be broader, maybe longer, where I really felt like throwing my hands up in the air. And, this is not like, me conveying suicidal ideation. My views on the life force are such that, for me personally, having been a person that has remedied suicidal ideation in myself from a time when I was extremely depressed and broken, I am here to serve, and I carry the universe's energy within. So as long as I'm able to breathe and continue to move and function and create change and love, I will continue being in this body. I do not believe that that's for me to choose. Certainly not at this time in my life. However, that does not mean that there haven't been moments where I've fallen into that darkness all over again, where I've just not been able to see the purpose, not being able to see how I can evolve beyond the point that I'm at, where I feel stuck, where I feel diminished, where I question my own ability to measure my worth for there's so much conditioning in me against self-worth, in the sense that I was so indoctrinated with the notion of self-worth actually being mistaken for arrogance that I constantly tear myself down, and if somebody else decides to like contribute to that, and I'm in that state of mind, then I am a royal hellhole of a human being. And I withdraw, and I go here at the center of our reading. This is us in the now. This is everything about our universe right now. And there's no clarifier on this yet because the Osho cards would not come out. They instructed me to wait until I was actually recording to pull the clarifiers because I knew that the story would be told from the cards that I wasn't understanding. So, how is it that here we are at the end of Leo season in total poverty consciousness? Well, because these are pentacles. And that's actually a kind of a normal process, right? When you have reached a point where you've gone through the inner process, where you've gone through the emotional and the spiritual self-analysis and integration and subsequent externalization, you've got nothing. You've got nothing to show other than what's within. So in the material world, you're at square one and you need to like start all over, and you need to like, with your new tools. But that can be it's always going to be a daunting task until you reach a true sense of enlightenment and you carry that, the universe and the light within you at all times. And personally, I'm very far from being there. So if you are there, then I'm honored that you're even taking the time to watch this. You must really look at me and think I'm a hot mess. But I don't think that the vast majority of you are there. And I think that we're all in this constant leveling up. And when we level up, we find ourselves in the nakedness of the newness, scratching our heads, going like, who am I? What am I going to do now? None of this fits. How am I going to change all of this? And all it takes when you're in that state of mind is to have one little person or one little thing come and flick you, and you fall over. So this is that moment when we have the opportunity to see that we have to save ourselves. We have to keep ourselves propped up. We have to reinforce our backbone. We have to know that whatever happens, if we are in pursuit of light, love, and our own sustenance and evolution, we are divinely guided and protected. Even if that means that we have to lose something or stumble, or, that we have to take a step back, or that we go through some kind of chaos and turmoil, whatever it is. If you know that you're not doing something out of self-destruction, you're just giving yourself the chance to make the leap from the point zero fear of poverty consciousness into the infinite possibilities. And that is where our future is, because our outcome is the Fool and the Wheel of Fortune together. I mean, what a beautiful combination of cards. Again, that's probably why I couldn't get any Osho Zen tarot cards on these cards as clarifiers, because whenever we get the Fool with the Wheel of Fortune together, that is a massive breakthrough that has no definition until it happens. You understand what I mean? But, that said, now Spirit, I hope, will be kind enough to give us the cards we need. And so, the first card that we get couldn't be more apt. And it didn't even fall out of the deck. I just started shuffling and then it was staring right at me, and I just knew that that was the card that we need to read. Existence. 1. Now, I don't know if this is the overall energy or the outcome, so let's just see what the message is and we'll figure it out from there. I'll hold it up while I read. This naked figure sits on the lotus leaf of perfection, gazing at the beauty of the night sky. She knows that home is not a physical place in the outside world, but an inner quality of relaxation and acceptance. The stars, the rocks, the trees, the flowers, fish and birds, all are our brothers and sisters in this dance of life. We human beings tend to forget this as we pursue our own private agendas and believe we must fight to get what we need. But ultimately, our sense of separateness is just an illusion, manufactured by the narrow preoccupations of the mind. Now is the time to look at whether you are allowing yourself to receive the extraordinary gift of feeling at home wherever you are. If you are, be sure to take time to savor it so it can deepen and remain with you. If, on the other hand, you've been feeling like the world is out to get you, it's time to take a break. Go outside tonight and look at the stars. You are not accidental. Existence needs you. Without you, something will be missing in existence and nobody can replace it. That's what gives you dignity. That's the whole existence that will miss you. The stars and sun and moon, the trees and birds and earth, everything in the universe will feel a small place is vacant, which cannot be filled by anyone except you. This gives you a tremendous joy, a fulfillment that you are related to existence, and existence cares for you. Once you are clean and clear, you can see tremendous love falling on you from all dimensions. So, purity, the gentle touch, everything points towards needing to focus on those things in order to allow the joy to come in, the inspiration to come in order to see, seek, and seize this opportunity for massive changes. I am going to take one more card. I've seen Tower card a couple of times there, so. Okay, well, this was staring up at me before, and I was going to take it, and then I was like, no, I will shuffle, but here it is again. Here's our outcome, abundance, which I believe is the King of Pentacles. I'm not entirely sure, but let's see. It's good timing, too, because those new elephants that have moved in upstairs are making a lot of noise again. Lots of things to look forward to. Wait till they hear me. I'm going to make my presence known. Okay, abundance. This Dionysian character is the very picture of a whole man, a Zorba the Buddha who can drink wine, dance on the beach, and sing in the rain, and at the same time enjoy the depths of understanding and wisdom that belong to the sage. In one hand he holds a lotus, showing that he respects and contains within himself the grace of the feminine. His exposed chest and open heart and relaxed belly show that he is at home with his masculinity as well, utterly self-contained. The four elements of earth, fire, water, and sky all conjunct at the King of Rainbows, who sits atop the book of the wisdom of life. If you are a woman, the King of Rainbows brings the support of your own male energies into your life, a union with soulmate within. For a man, this card represents a time of breaking through the conventional male stereotypes and allowing the fullness of the whole human being to shine forth. In the East, people have condemned the body, condemned matter, called matter illusory, Maya. It does not really exist, it only appears to exist. It is made of the same stuff as the dreams are made of. They denied the world, and that is the reason for the East remaining poor, sick, in starvation. Half of humanity has been accepting the inner world, but denying the outer world. The other half of humanity has been accepting the material world and denying the inner world. Both are half, and no man who is half can be contented. You have to be whole, rich in the body, rich in science, rich in meditation, rich in consciousness. Only a whole person is a holy person, according to me. I want Zorba and Buddha to meet together. Zorba alone is hollow. His dance is not an eternal significance, it is momentary pleasure. Soon he will be tired of it, unless you have inexhaustible resources available to you from the cosmos itself. Unless you become existential, you cannot become whole. This is my contribution to humanity, the whole person. So think about that. I feel like it's important to note that, the triggering of seeing the devil at a time when most of us have worked very hard to move beyond our addictions and our codependency, that's like, and then you see like the Five of Pentacles, it's like, holy fuck, like I am not prepared to go backwards into that energy. But you can't go back into that energy. It's simply a reminder that you are out of balance when you feel any of those things, because you are the whole beyond that. You are the yin yang fusion. You are abundance. You are not poverty consciousness. You are master of love. You are not the devil. You are the student and the teacher. You are divine inspiration. And that is how the wheel of fortune moves. That is the faith that puts you in the place to be the fool, ready to step off the cliff into the unknown. Do it gently, with grace. I know it's a lot to take in. And there's one more card that wants to be read. The Eight of Wands, traveling. This is where our Fool journey is taking us. The tiny figure moving on the path through this beautiful landscape is not concerned about the goal. He or she knows that the journey is the goal. The pilgrimage itself is the sacred place. Each step on the path is important in itself. By the way, just a message for whoever needed it right now that came right through. There is always going to be a solution. Every change, whether you lost your job or you lost your home or whatever it is, you have been on this journey thus far. That is the journey. That is what you're supposed to experience. And there's always a new opportunity when one other opportunity disappears. Just remember that. I don't know who needed to hear that, but there you go. When this card appears in a reading, it indicates a time of movement and change. It may be a physical movement from one place to the next, or an inner movement from one way of being to another. But whatever the case, this card promises that the going will be easy and will bring a sense of adventure and growth. See? There is no need to struggle or plan too much. The traveling card also reminds us to accept and embrace the new, just as when we travel to another country with a different culture and environment than the one we are accustomed to. The attitude of openness and acceptance invites new friends and experiences into our lives. Can you be open to that? That's a real question. Life is a continuity, always and always. There is no final destination it is going towards, just the pilgrimage, just the journey in itself is life, not reaching to some point, no goal, just dancing and being in pilgrimage, moving joyously without bothering without bothering about any destination. What will you do by getting to a destination? Nobody has asked this because everybody is trying to have some destination in life. But the implications, if you really reach the destination of life, then what? Then you will look very embarrassed, nowhere to go. You have reached to the final destination, and in the journey, you have lost everything. You have to lose everything. You had to lose everything. So standing naked at the final destination, you will look all around like an idiot. What was the point? You were hurrying so hard, and you were so worried, and this is the outcome. So enjoy the journey. Remember the journey. Remember you are on the journey. Remember that whatever you hope to see happen in the future is already happening. I love you. I wish infinite blessings for you. And yeah, see you on the other side. May this be a wonderful week. Namaste.